Oh, so I would like to show the last two games from this book, because this book is made by 35 games, detailed annotation, move-by-move system means that they offer in critical moments or in moments that he considers important, stop you and ask you questions that you should answer. In the beginning I thought I would do the 20% of the content of the book, which means 7 games. So now I will show you game 6. Game 6 was played in Paris, 1867, and Steinitz was white. Sorry, this pawn moved himself. I didn't put it there, I promise. So Steinitz was white and was playing against Simon Winawer. Simon Winawer was an active businessman. He lived from 1838 to 1920, and he was probably one of the world best players from 1860 to 1880s. So he was a good player, okay? As we have discovered, or at least I discovered from the other biography on Steinitz, all these people were businessmen, so that makes sense, because otherwise I didn't understand how they could go from one country to another, because it must have been quite expensive, and how would they support themselves there? That's the part I couldn't understand, right? Okay. It seems that Paris 1867 was a great tournament, okay, and this was the fourth time Winawer and Steinitz played. So Steinitz is white, he played e4, Winawer is black, and he plays the French defense xx, right, because he's in France. d4, d5, knight c3, bishop b4, e takes d5, e takes d5. Now we went from a French defense that could have been a Winawer variation to a exchange French. Bishop d3. Against the French, white is generally advised to adopt space-gaining strategies based on playing an early e5. So they say it would be better to play the French advance rather than on such exchanging lines that risk early simplification and easy equality. To tell you the truth, the funny thing about chess is that thanks to the total dominance of computers, also some things that have been considered drawish, like the exchange French, have been revisited, and now also the French exchange is not what it was. It's ridiculous. However, I won some game in the French exchange on the white side, so it's really a good opening to play if you have a fighting spirit. If you just go for drawish, yeah, you can have a drawish, okay? So, how did black continue after bishop d3? With bishop e6, knight f3, and here there is the fourth dubious move, h6. Black wishes to deny white knight access to g5, right? But this is somewhat a risky choice. Why? The answer is that you are using a tempo that is not really necessary. At this point this would make sense, right? Knight f6. It seems, however, that in 1868 Steinitz played in London against Blackburn. Blackburn was black, and Blackburn played knight f6, and the game ended in a draw, okay? However, it's not that this move is the losing move, it's just not so good, let's say, okay? Castle, bishop takes e3, and this is a move that is considered bad by the author. Also here it doesn't make sense why he took on c3, honestly. I think it's considered bad more for today's choice of pieces because as you can see, after b takes c3, white has the bishop pair, black doesn't have it anymore. Believe me, the bishop pair is something to reckon with, especially if you play against a computer. The computer will it will even take on a queen with a bishop pair and probably take you down. It's scary what a computer can do when they have a bishop pair. Okay, so after b takes c3, black played knight d7, rook b1, knight b6. Again, I am not sure this move is good. Nothing was put there, but again, I don't think this is the way you play the French exchange as black, and I played the black side of it. Okay, knight e5. So here it says we would all have played this obvious and thoroughly strong move. Behind it, however, is a more concrete plan of attack that proves decisive. Question: what are the main elements of that plan? So try to think what would be your plan if you were white and you would have played knight e5. The answer is, after 10 knight e5, white threatens to run his f-pawn rapidly up the board. If it reaches f5, white will conquer a swath of critical kingside light squares. Okay. In some lines it may even reach f6. Wow. With destructive structural impact, black can't afford to play knight f6 to block that latter possibility, as white can play bishop f3. So the problem is that he will play bishop f3 and prevent castling, trapping the black king in the center. Yeah, that's the point. So this is the reason why h6 wasn't so good. This bishop takes c3 not so good, because practically the game is drawish if everything is kind of symmetric. But symmetric means knight f6 and castle, and the guy didn't do that. So that's not symmetric anymore. And so there are some possibilities that a good player may want to exploit, right? Okay, let's see. Here it seems there is an exercise. Can you already spot white's critical 13th move? So 3 moves later, let's see what happens. Knight e7, f4, bishop f5, bishop takes f5, knight takes f5, and now can you spot the move, he asks. The idea here is the same that you would see in a Morphy's game or in a young Kasparov game, where once the king is in the center, they do everything to keep it there, no matter how much material they sack, because they know that there is a chance to give checkmate. So the move that white plays is bishop a3, blocking the castling, because castling is a move by the king, not by the rook. And that's why if you touch the rook, you have to move the rook. Instead, if you touch the king, you can actually castle. The problem is that for the rules of chess, if the enemy controls one of the squares where the king must pass through, then the king cannot castle. That's the rule, okay? So that's why bishop a3 is a very important move. Knight d6, obviously, because he wants to castle. f5, now we see that he's going to play f6 probably, so it's a problem. And knight e4. This move doesn't prevent white's threatened f6. And if you spotted this detail at white's 10th move, give yourself some extra credit. Steinitz would almost certainly have judged that this was possible, but probably wouldn't have tried to work out all its details at that stage. Black's game is even more clearly hopeless after castling. So instead of instead of 94, castling, because of f6. Okay, and this definitely damages the pawn structure. Why the pawn structure is important? It's because it's protecting the king. Okay, so that's why it's very, very important, that pawn structure. Okay, so he played knight e4, and let's see how the game continued. f6, interesting, and g6, obviously it doesn't take. Let's see. I think at this point it's very important to understand what happens if he takes and what happens with what he takes, right? So let's start with the one that makes sense, no? Instead of destroying. Yeah, also this one makes sense because honestly it opens the file, you could try to have an attack. But let's see that you are a defensive guy and you want just to keep things quiet. How would white continue here? He would continue with queen d3, and the threat is rook b e1. He cannot castle. The point is that this cannot move, otherwise the f rook goes on f7. So that's what would have happened if black would have taken with the knight. Now let's see instead if he plays g takes f6. G takes f6, there is queen h5. And that's interesting, yeah, because he's attacking here. Let's say that he makes knight g5, knight takes f7, knight takes f7, rook b e1, that we have seen also in the other line, king d7, the rook takes, I'm sorry, the queen takes f7, king c8, and rook takes f6. That's interesting. Okay. And it seems the situation is kind of bad for black. Now, I'm not going to give you all the lines that are given in the book. Generally, you can buy the book if you really want to see them. You should be satisfied with this, but if you are not satisfied, just get the book. I'm sure the author will be happy. And honestly, today some books are very cheap because I buy them used. I buy them when I see that the price really goes down, and you can really have for $10 a nice book full of a collection of games from which you can learn, practice, and play some position, because maybe some positions are not clear to you, and then this position you say, yeah, but how do I win as white? And so you can practice against a sparring partner or against an engine, right? Okay, let me pause and return back to the position. Okay, so more or less we were around here when white played f6, and we have analyzed what happens if black takes with a pawn or black takes with a knight. Instead, in the game, g6 was played. And here it says black struggles unavailingly to defend by keeping the king side close, and now loses a pretty two-move, and now loses to a pretty two-move combination. Black also loses if he captures white's f-pawn. How does white then win? So try to find out what would you play if you were white. Okay? Well, let's see. How does he win? Queen g4. Probably the idea attack, 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 and then this is unstoppable. So let's see, queen c8. Oh my god, what's going on? No way. He made an incredible move. Can you imagine what what he played. Queen takes g6. Wow, that's amazing. Let's see, because this is interesting. He played queen e6. You cannot take this, it says. Why? Because of f7, king d8. The king cannot go here because of this. Yeah. So king d8, f8 queen, rook takes f8, rook takes f8, checkmate. Oh wow. Now let's see it really with our eyes, but let's try always to visualize in our head first, okay? f7, it cannot go here because of this, so it can only go here. f8 queen, check, take, and it's checkmate. It cannot go here because of this. So amazing, amazing combination. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I didn't think we would see something like that. So let's see. The queen was here, I think, and he took on g6, and now it's practically over. Yeah. So he plays queen e6 to try to survive. Queen g7. Castle, woo! Knight takes f7, forking. Knight takes c3, and of course in the book they also analyze what happens if black played this, but it's not good. It's not good, honestly. It seems that you cannot stop then that pawn. However, get the book or do your analysis. I mean, it's not a big deal, right? You can do your analysis. So let's see what happens here, because I'm curious. So knight f7, knight c3, knight takes d8, rook takes d8, f7, the unstoppable pawn, knight d7, trying to control this, rook b, e1, trying to go here, knight e2, check, rook, not rook, king, h1, c5, oh, finally blocking the diagonal, bishop takes c5, he doesn't care because he wants to go, queen e4, f8, queen. And that's why you should have always a set with two queens, right? Knight takes f8, rook takes f8, knight g3, queen takes g3, rook takes f8, and bishop takes f8. And at this point, black realizes that is a little down on material, so probably he will not win the game. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this wonderful game by Steinitz, and I finish my review of this book here because I don't want to become too boring with games only by Steinitz, only based on one book. I hope you will eventually enjoy this book like I did, because honestly it showed me a lot of things I didn't know about Steinitz. Thank you very much, and see you at my next video.